All right, MA Marignon, turn 59. We have a lot of pokers in the fire right now, so let's just take a look at what's going on. We finished research and evocation. This is nice. This does provide us with firestorm. This is another possible option for fort storming, right? It's just sort of sit back, put up firestorm, and see what happens inside the fort. We are definitely starting to get to the part of the game where this firestorm is going to become irrelevant. Speaking of firestorm becoming irrelevant, alteration 9 is one of the ways that can happen. I think we're only headed to 8 right now, but 9 is definitely on the list. This is probably why that Ysian army hung out, I'm guessing, because there was a throne claim. They just took this recently, I think, from Pelagia. One of the things I forgot to mention is we spent pretty much all of our water gems on another Kokithiad. That's what this is about. One of the nice things about Kokithiads is it's pretty easy for them to bring in other Kokithiads. So that's nice. We don't have a ton of death or a ton of water. So yeah, both of those ladies are probably going to move out and do more site searching. There was a dire portent. So let's see. It's dark in here, which I think is Agartha. And it looks like they cast Eternal Pyre, I think, if I'm reading this right. Which is definitely unfortunate because that is what we also did this turn. So yeah, we cast Eternal Pyre, but it was cast successfully. So I'm assuming that we put more gems into the cast than they did, and we were able to overcast their cast of Eternal Pyre. This was definitely not my intent, but I'm glad that it went this way, and perhaps an argument for putting, I was just talking about how it was like, you don't want to put a ton of gems into the gem generators since their purpose is to get you gems. But on the flip, if something like this happens, it is definitely nice, if yours goes through. And then we continue to send our Horror Harmonica Golem on a tour of our kingdom. And then let's see here, our blood hunting is on the way. Ooh, we're the victim of an assassination attempt. Gosh darn you, AI. Just somewhere random, of course. Oh no, this guy has a skull staff. Oh, he's doing some site searching. Okay, Horde of Skeletons. Yes, this could work. This could definitely work. Because this is just like an unkitted, mundane Abyssian. Now, even a mundane Abyssian has a heat aura, and like skeletons do not care about the cold, but they do not love the heat, right? Like, yeah, there's one getting set on fire. But this guy doesn't really have much protection, so we are able to come away with it, thank heavens. And then we catch quite a few battles in the Phlegron War, including some of Ulm's, so it looks like Ulm is battling back. Maybe they were just taking a brief pause, maybe they didn't get rolled back at all. Right, this is our full kit in action, our problem solver, and here's the problem. A lot of PD, a large PD dump. So yeah, I think we'll be fine, but we'll see. I haven't done a ton of thugging, so still a little bit concerned. The awe here is, I think, better than normal. Awe doesn't work against a lot of units, a lot of things in dominions, but province defense tends to have pretty low morale and is definitely affected by awe. So I think our Harbinger is a good chassis for clearing out province defense at least. So yeah, that works out for us, and no need to rehash the dangers of unsupported province defense dumps. Not that I would ever do anything so foolish. And then here we have Ulm. Hey, also some thug stuff. Very cool. Ooh, this is an event unit, Grey Lord. They're part of like some secretive order, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, they're really cool. They're ethereal. I want them to be better, but the 14 hit points is a serious problem. But they at least have built-in ethereal. He has awe from the shield. This is pretty expensive kit for a guy like this, I think. I would be a little nervous putting this much kit on this fellow. But I do think he's going to absolutely crush province defense. Ethereal, again, something that doesn't always work out, similar to awe, right, against player stuff. But if you're just up against province defense, that's almost all mundane, weapons. So that's a pretty big upgrade. And then, of course, he has awe from his shield as well. So, I think he's going to be able to absolutely destroy this PD, even with his relatively low hit point pool. So, that's a cool thug, and it works out. And then we have a battle in the Land of Plenty. I think this is our... Nope, this is our raiding group. I thought it was our secondary army. So these are our raiders, and he did double back, it looks like, although he didn't province defense dump, although I don't know where the Lizard Shaman came from. Maybe he was always, with it. Maybe he came from somewhere else. Ah man, our fire elementals, some of them appeared behind, so that's fantastic. We have a few of our swordsmen. Oh yeah, they're just setting our guys on fire. This is the problem with like full bodyguards with these kind of groups, because if the bodyguards get out in front, then the fire elementals pop in behind. Our knights at least, you know, shouldn't really care about the fire elementals, you know, yeah, setting them on fire. And like, yeah, fire elementals are pretty good. We are going to lose the majority of our swordsmen here, and there's some danger of an HP rout, I think. Although maybe not, because we have a lot of guys on guard commander, and like I think our summons do count. And fire elementals do have a lot of hit points. Actually, they have less hit points than I thought. I guess it's just because they have a bunch of forms, so it doesn't look like they have as many hit points as they do, because when they die, their hit points reset up. Not to the same level, because they're a smaller form. But yeah, but still, we don't get the HP route. We do lose any of our swordsmen that were not on bodyguards, so not a perfect raid. We also spend a lot of fire gems, which is less than ideal. I am trying to move away from this style of raiding. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with fire elemental raiding, it's just expensive. But considering that, you know, our other raids, we didn't invest enough, right? And a lot of them failed as a result, and it's kind of like, well, you know, at least in this case, we invested a lot, but we were up against quite a bit. And in fact, there was no province defense there at all. So this is really nice. We get rid of, you know, quite a few mobile units, although we don't get any commanders, and like, yeah, Phlegra can replace these kind of heal-it warrior losses, you know, really easily, really quickly, right, because the recruitment point is low. Resource cost is actually just average, but yeah, these guys can come out in great numbers, so no great loss for them there, but we do at least take the province, and then we witness a battle. This is Vanheim, probably raiding. Nope. It looks like this is it. They've decided to, you know, bring out probably more or less everything they have to fight against this massive army from Asphodel. Definitely fear for their lives. They have brought out some Jade Sorceresses. Yeah, very nice. They've been boosted. This is a Nature Random who's been boosted. And then let's see. This is, yeah, also a Nature Random that's been boosted, or maybe empowered. Yeah, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they can random into Nature too. So yeah, that's pretty expensive, but definitely really necessary. So these ladies are here for some poison resistance. I don't know if this is going to be enough, right? The fact that he brought two of them, hopefully he's just got like backup for his Serpent's Blessing cast, but if he's trying to use Poison Ward, I don't think these ladies are going to be able to get full coverage, so that could be kind of rough. But this is a ton of scary stuff from Vanheim. Yeah, no, that looks like Serpent's Blessing. So Serpent's Blessing, so everyone has poison resistance, and I think the other one might have been Mass Protection. I'm not sure, actually. So some Sleep Cloud coming out. Yeah, all the spells coming out. Let's slow this down a little bit and turn on Team Colored Squares. And let's take stock of who's got what. So we have Rigor Mortis, Fatigue Play coming from Asphodel. That makes sense. Wailing Winds by a Great Eagle, which I'm thinking must also be coming from Asphodel. That's probably a pan that's been transformed, because Great Eagles normally are neither commanders nor mages. So this combination is really brutal, and like, yeah, this is going to suck for us too. So definitely worth noting. And then we have a Storm that is coming from Vanheim. You can definitely expect to see some lightning come down. Also, they don't have, you know, any ranged units, whereas Asphodel definitely does have some ranged units, so hoping to eliminate some of those projectiles. Relief, again, this must be Asphodel, because Great Bears normally not known for their spellcasting abilities, so probably also the result of a transformation. And then of course Foul Vapors, which we very much knew about. That was pretty much what Asphodel was relying on completely before. But they have significantly upgraded the spellcasting component of this army, or, you know, maybe just brought the gems out necessary. So yeah, the Sacreds for Vanheim, I think at least initially should do quite well against the mannequins, I would hope. You know, they have Twist Fate, they have really high defense, they have Glamour. Let's take a quick look at their stats. Yeah, right, this is good stuff. They also managed to get Mass Protection on them, so they have, you know, good protection level. This is probably being, harassed. No, yeah, only a little bit of harassment penalty so far. Of course, the story will change, right, as Rigor Mortis starts to take effect, and as these units start to fatigue out. And the other thing too is that these mannequins deal fatigue damage, so they really actually combine pretty well with Rigor Mortis, because, you know, you just have fatigue building naturally in the background, and then you have units that every time they're landing their attacks, they're dealing fatigue damage. So, you know, as these vans fall asleep, they are absolutely going to die. So, while I think Vanheim is going to hold up okay for a while, and they're definitely going to, get some casualties, or they're going to cause some casualties. Definitely going to be some dead mannequins. I think before long we're going to see this line start to collapse. So, while I think this is going to be an expensive win for Asphodel, I think it's one that they can afford, especially since I think these mannequins are at least relatively cheap to summon in, but I believe Asphodel just gets them as free spawn. I really need to look into that. I know they get some free spawn, and it must be the mannequins, and yeah, we can see some of the mages start to rout, right? And don't forget that Wailing Winds is up, so that's another reason that this line could collapse at any time. The Einhairs at least are berserkers, right? So once they take some damage, and they probably will take some damage, no, because they have Serpent's Blessing. Still, it's possible that some poison damage will get through, and then that damage should trigger the berserk. Once they're berserked, they won't rout. Of course, if they haven't berserked yet, like these guys, then they absolutely are susceptible to Wailing Winds. Their morale is not fantastic, although for whatever reason, it doesn't look like the morale on these guys is broken. I don't know what is going on with these guys here. This is very strange behavior. Maybe it's like an attack closest, and they're getting kind of confused. Yeah, there's a few units in the back here. Is this like a flying thug? Nope, just a carry-on beast that got into the back. Maybe there's an attack rear going on, and that is possibly what is confusing these Einhairs. Attack closest can definitely cause some problems. That's one of the reasons that some people prefer attack rear, because at least your units are going to try to go forward. That presents its own problems, definitely, but this is perhaps a case where attack rear would have worked out better, because this kind of looks like them getting a bit confused target-wise, with attack closest. The pathfinding AI in Dominions is not the best. You can see that most stuff on Vanheim's side is asleep. That said, the Centaur are not immune to Rigor Mortis, and while, Asphodel does have Relief up, which is a partial counter to Rigor Mortis, doesn't fully stop it, so these Centaur will fall asleep, and eventually the mannequins will finish the job, but it will take them a while. I think they just have to deal damage by over-fatiguing units, it's kind of slow going, but hey, Rigor Mortis is up, and we probably still have plenty of battle rounds left. Dominions doesn't want to bring up the remaining battle rounds because very unhappy with this fight. Too many effects going on, too many mannequins. I agree, we should have gotten rid of Asphodel a long time ago. So I think a decent attempt by Vanheim, but I think he just didn't have as much tech and didn't have as much stuff. So that's probably all she wrote for Vanheim. Let's take a look. Mage-wise, the losses are actually not too bad. Wailing Winds, helped keep those losses relatively low. So in that sense, it's not a catastrophic battle. But they do lose the majority of their Vans, which is pretty significant. Those guys are capital only. They're definitely not going to have time to recruit up many replacements. And they don't have a lot of unlocked infrastructure, so now the Einhair losses kind of hurt extra. It's not without cost for Asphodel. They don't lose any mages, though. They don't actually, they bring a decent number of mages, actually, which is probably appropriate for a 500-unit army. So the majority of their losses, of course, are mannequins, which, we talked about. Probably not a big deal, probably free for them. The Centaur Warriors, more significant. They lose almost half. The Carrion Beasts, also, they probably don't care about so much. So yeah, these guys are expensive, and again, gold is a bit harder to come by for Asphodel. So they won't love losing all those Centaur Warrior, but at the same time, trading it out for probably the last army of Vanheim, totally worth it, I would say. And then we get attacked by Phalegra. I suspect this is that raiding force. Yep, that's deep in our territory. I think it's jumping on top of our fort. Yeah, so we just have, this is just the normal fort PD that I have. I think it's 15. We might kill one, maybe. Crossbowmen, come on, do something. Our infantry, not so much. Hey, yeah, there we go. One thing about Marignon's infantry, they're not great. The lack of shield and everything. There's a lot of problems with them. But the two-handed weapons does mean that, they do a bit more damage than normal. Hey, there you go. Our paladin gets a kill on the way out. Not a terrible showing for our province defense. And at the end of the day, this is unsupported raiding group, so they're going to continue to bleed out. So we may not even end up, we're definitely going to continue to try to intercept them. But eventually they're just going to whittle themselves down to the point where we'll be able to get them to lose and die to some province defense. So yeah, and that was 20 PD. So definitely a good amount of gold that we lose here. It is painful. This is a fort of ours that's locked down. We are recruiting enchantresses out of this fort, and I didn't consider that wrinkle because we could have tried to patrol, but I didn't want to risk enchantresses. But of course now our recruitment gets interrupted, so we lose out there. Yeah, we've talked about this group. It's not good, but it's not the end of the world either. And speaking of why it's not the end of the world, here's our main army pushing forward. So let's see. Yeah, and Phlegra chooses not to resist. I think that army that's in there is mostly designed to hold up the walls, right, and just make it really annoying to siege down the fortification. But I think we have enough eagles here already in this group that's not going to be too much of an issue for us. So yeah, we'll see if we manage to get the crack. And we'll see if we manage to friendly fire ourselves a bit. So we do manage to attrit out some swordsmen. And actually, yeah, our swordsman line is a bit smaller than I remember. We definitely took some casualties, and I did not bother replenishing it. So that's a pretty pitiful front line and may come back to haunt us. We'll see. We may pause one turn in this fort. I don't know how good. That's the other thing. Some of these forts, they've been built because there's a throne there, or maybe for some independent mages, and they may not actually be a very useful place to try to do some recruitment from, so it may not be worth wasting the turn to recruit 5 swordsmen. Then again, we can recruit replacements and then gateway them out, so that might be worth it. But anyway, we do at least move forward and put that under siege, and then this should be our other army moving forward. Yeah, fewer eagles in this, but we are bringing up some more eagles, and yeah, quite a province defense dump here. It's really interesting, different players, it's like a fight against players that just only leave 1 PD no matter what, right? Phlegra seems to be, kind of the other camp where they prefer to leave a pretty heavy amount of province defense. And yeah, you just kind of got to get used to what your different opponents are doing, and then, change your expectations and your actions accordingly. That said, I mean, I'm a mix. I definitely will invest in province defense, but if you're just up against an army, Phlegra did actually have quite a few units in here, and I mean, Lord knows I've done that before, where it's I have some units in position and I PD dump, and then for whatever reason the battle doesn't happen, and then I look at it and realize actually change of plans, we need to abandon this. So maybe that's what happened here. But yeah, province defense not really going to do a whole lot. We do attrit out a few units, but that's totally acceptable. And then we witness another Almash attack. So let's see if it's probably another thug. I'm thinking almost looks like the same thug. Well, I don't remember the last guy's name, but this is another Grey Lord, so I think there might be a site. Normally I've seen these guys from events, but maybe there's a site out there, or maybe they've just gotten lucky. I do think they took luck. Ooh, this guy actually runs into... So this is a situation, right, where we may see that this is an overinvestment of gear in this chassis. Or maybe, he's a huge badass and will prove me wrong. But this white mage is not actually looking super scary from an anti-thug standpoint, but he does have 130 hit points. And he's a mage, right, who can do all kinds of nasty spell casting. And with the magic weapon, he's not going to care about ethereal. And then there's another thug over here. This guy is set up as an anti-thug chassis or anti-thug kit. With this Halberd of Might, he's going to be dealing 53 damage, and then he himself, it's almost 70 hit points. Same thing, he's also a mage. Yeah, I don't really see this guy coming out on top. And so this is the situation where it's well, why are you going to invest that much gear? Because I don't think he needs that much gear to beat the province defense, but then all the extra gear doesn't really help him at all when he runs into something really scary. So while I 100% sympathize with Ulm and wish that it was worth it to invest in these guys because they're really cool, if you're going to be going up possibly against, Phlegra tyrants, I wouldn't bother investing as heavily. But on the other hand, we do all play this game for fun, and Lord knows I like to overkit my assassins at times, or this, that, and the other. So if Ulm is having fun with it, there's no problem there in my book. And then, yeah, so there's 2 Asphodel armies. Interesting. Okay, I don't think I got that wrinkle. Because we just saw a major battle, and then of course this is the one that we were aware about already, who was sieging that fort, and yeah, this fort is empty. That's not that surprising considering what we just saw from Vanheim. It doesn't surprise me that Asphodel has 2 giant armies. After all, we have 3 pretty significant armies, so I'm sure Asphodel has more than 2 large armies. I just didn't realize they had 2 in motion already currently against Vanheim. So yeah, that doesn't work out for Vanheim. Yeah, Asphodel doesn't really lose anything. And I guess technically we have 4 armies, right? This is our 4th army, which, like, you know, wouldn't really want to send this against anything real. And it doesn't really look like we're up against anything real, thank heavens. So I don't know where that horror trap went. I mean, I feel like it must have died to man's stuff at some point. Yeah, we are going to spend a bunch of gems, though, so we do get Fog Warriors up, and hopefully we get a Divine Blessing. Yeah, it does look like it, right? So we have, you know, fire resistance on the flagellants. This is one of the cases where flagellants are actually going to do better than normal, right? Because they were up against, well, I mean, the knights kind of evaporated them, but, you know, those lions have like a heat aura, and our regular infantry would not have loved that, whereas our flagellants have 10 fire resistance, so they're better able to handle that situation. But yeah, there's just not that much stuff in here, so we're going to roll over it. Let's check to see, do we take any casualties? We do lose some flagellants. I mean, they are, you know, naked guys that beat themselves. I mean, okay, they're not completely naked, but from an armor standpoint, they are. We do lose 6 knights, which is kind of rough. And I'm not really sure who gets those kills. Maybe, no, we didn't bring them any crossbowmen. Did somebody drop some rocks? I feel like somebody dropped some rocks after I exited out of that replay. That's not what they were here to do. They were here to try to fix the protection problem that some of our units have. But once they do that, well, you just can't really stop them from dropping rocks. And then we witness a battle in Ermor's old capital between Shiniyama and Jotunheim. And, like, yeah, we've seen this kind of force from Shiniyama before. Still very mage light, almost mage absent. There's just one Bakemono shaman who's showing the flag as a D1, although this fort is probably empty. Yeah, in fact, we saw this. It was just the lone earth gnome hanging out. So I think Shiniyama's got this one, no problem. No point in committing mages that you don't have to, although, wow, they do lose quite a bit of stuff, yeah, to the, oh, of course, the hurlers. Devil's always in the details, but most of what they lose, not a big deal. You know, losing the 4 Bakemono, never great, but I think they can handle that loss for a fort, especially for a capital, right? Ermor's capital, not going to provide that much gold, but it is going to provide a ton of death gems, which is very nice. And that mostly covers it for battles. We do have an unexpected event. There's an assassination attempt. There's a ghost trying to assassinate one of our site searchers. Fantastic. I think we're going to lose a site searcher. Oh no, this is just a friar. Well, that's fine. Although that said, this friar does actually have a chance. He is a priest, really, blessing. Yeah, so he does get some banishment in there at the end, but then Ghost ganks him. And then we have another unexpected event. Yeah, some break-ins. That's fine. And then we catch a Phlegron scout somewhere. Not actually sure where this is. Does look like it's on one of our forts, and we are doing a little bit of patrolling, so happy to get rid of that. Unfortunately, we lose a scout in Abyssia, 2-man. They're probably not going to love this, but at the same time, like, you know, people usually, everybody's scouting everybody. It's not such a big deal as long as, like, we don't continue to lose scouts on top of their forts. This probably won't annoy them too much. I do really approve of their patrollers, right? They're just using, like, Solus, so if somebody does jump on this fort with something serious, like, they're not going to lose anything important, but this is a lot of patrol strength. So, you know, it's going to get rid of stealthy units, but not really risk too much. The only thing is, I do think, oh no, Solus are mindless, so they don't really provide anything in terms of siege defense. Because I was going to say, if these guys provide decent siege defense, then be a little sad if you're potentially risking losing them while they're patrolling. And despite all those Mouflon, we do get the 1-turn crack. It is extremely difficult to keep Great Eagles out. So we probably won't storm immediately. We may even wait here a turn because we have to either move out or teleport out our Horror Harmonica Golem. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Haven't decided on that yet. But regardless, nice to get the 1-turn crack. And then we are under siege, and you can see that giants, even in small numbers, are kind of dangerous for mostly empty forts. And this will eventually get cracked, and there's a decent chance that Phlegra might just try to hang out here, which would kind of suit us because then we could catch him. Or they might keep going. So like either way, we have enough stuff in motion nearby that we should be able to combine it all together like before or at the time that this is cracked and actually destroy that raiding group. But still, we are on the clock for this, and yeah, I'll catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. First things first, the Phlegron War. So we're going to send our secondary army against this fortress here, which is Nazca. And yeah, I've talked a little bit before, like we're not sure what Phlegra is going to do with their mage stack, so there's definitely some danger here. We may get hit by an earthquake trap. It's going to be difficult for him to combine that with his army, but especially since we're going to be sitting on top of a fort for at least one turn, he'll be able to break siege with just the earthquake trap and leave his troops inside. So yeah, there's definitely a good amount of danger here. We're also, it's hard to say from the scout report. We are definitely outnumbered. Now, I think with the magic support that we have in terms of army buffs and then also troop quality, right? Most of this is just like Heelot warriors and Heelot soldiers, neither of which are very good compared to, Knights of the Holy Chalice. But numbers could become a problem depending on what kind of magic support Felegra is going to be giving to their troops. So related to that, we are moving up, our third army here with some eagles. Maybe you should have split the eagles forward, but I don't really want the eagles in the fight. So we'll definitely move them up next turn, assuming that we win the battle and we haven't cracked the fort. But yeah, this army will just make sure that this retreat route stays open. Not that I think it's likely to be raided, but still never hurts to make sure. And then we're going to send our, fully kitted Harbinger to also open up another retreat route. Hopefully, the single Gigante warrior, there is some danger here, definitely. She is well set up to deal with just, basic chaff. But she doesn't have fantastic defense skill, and she doesn't have that many hit points, and her invulnerability is going to be worthless against the Gigante's magic weapons and the Gigante berserks, so awe won't matter. So I think she'll be okay, but kind of breaking a little bit, right? I said I wasn't going to risk this kit, and we mostly are not. There is a little bit of danger that he moves out of the fort, and she bumps into a lot of stuff, but I think that's highly unlikely since we have an army here that's about to be jumping on top. So I think he's been stuffing this fort the last couple of turns with troops and etc. So I doubt that he'll be moving anything out. But there's definitely some risk in this attack, but I think it's worth it to open up another retreat route for our army just in case things go wrong. Related to that, our other army, I was very tempted to move here, to open up a third retreat route, but almost pushing fairly hard. And while sure, it would be nice to pick up Felegra, I always figured that was a bit of a stretch. This other throne wasn't, immediately on our list of goals either. I figured that was also a stretch. But Ulm has been mostly just raiding, right? So it's even if Ulm takes this province, we may just move into it because it's kind of we're both raiding back and forth. We haven't actually seen an army. Well, we don't actually know what's moving up here, so possibly there's a large army that's about to sit on top of this fort, but yeah, we're kind of just racing with Ulm, so it's let's just go directly for this throne. I think I don't love leaving forts untaken, behind my armies. But this fort was relatively empty, other than garbage that's designed to hold up the walls. I think this fort does have a lot of mages, including a white mage. So this is somewhat dangerous. But assuming things don't go horribly wrong on top of Nazca, we can send our third army to sit on top of this, so we won't leave, an unsieged fort in our rear for too many turns. And then, of course, we are sending our Golem, our Horror Harmonica Golem, on top of this fort, and then he will hopefully just take it for us. I think we're also sending him, yes, one bug caster, right? Because like I said, a little bit of, chaff cover would be useful for him. So in this case, we had a bug guy nearby. So, we're sending him a bug guy. We let Xibalba know that we would be raiding into this. We're going to leave no province defense as per our agreement. And then we'll see. If Ulm successfully raids here, I may talk to Xibalba and try to, do the same deal where it's hey, I'm going to move into 29. I'll leave no province defense because that way, people don't love it when you attack their provinces, and I feel Ulm, may become aggressive if we start attacking them, even if it is territory that they just recently raided and don't fully hold. So I think that covers the majority of the Phlegron War. Yeah, we're also moving up this raiding group. They're out of gems now. Possibly there's going to be a PD dump here, but I still think this is enough fire casting and enough bodyguards. We'd probably be okay. We are bringing up some more knights, just in case we're not okay. Unfortunately, the Knights of the Chalice, they're not that fast as cavalry goes, so they can't actually make this 2-province move. But they'll get there eventually. And then still have not reached out to Yis. They haven't been moving super fast in terms of finishing off Pelagia, and I feel there isn't really a strong need to reach out to them until, Pelagia is down to it. And so like, yeah, I'd say like Plage looks like they still have a good amount of fight. There's a lot of forts here that are going to need reducing. We can see that it looks like they've split out a raiding group of their sacreds. So like hopefully that's going here and like not coming onto shore and then going to come mess with us. We are moving our scout, to sea just in case. And of course we can see these sacreds because our scout has spirit sight, and because these sacreds don't have stealthy, they only have glamour. Definitely something that tripped me up quite a bit earlier on in my Dominion's career when I was trying to scout stealthy elves and confused as to why people were saying that spirit sight was useful for scouting elves. And then otherwise, we don't really have any wars going on. Like, yeah, I haven't reached out to any of the players yet. Like, we'll see about coalitioning Asphodel. Like, I do think that, yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point where pop kill is looking kind of dangerous. Interesting. I'll have to go back and check, but this seems somewhat deep, so it's possible that Ulm and Asphodel are already fighting, or this is just, relatively deep border. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be a hard sell other than, the Ariu wild card, which we probably need to start worrying about. We probably need to start building up more of a garrison along our border. Not, we don't want to precipitate war by building up too much, but at the same time, like, I don't really want to leave myself undefended because they have turned into a bit of a monster. And then, like, yeah, Vanheim, it's not looking great, although the progress, it does look like they've at least, like, knocked off whatever raiders were sitting on top of their forts, which is good. But it's going to take Asphodel a second to, like, push around, like, man's territory here. And then we also see a good amount of deep raiding here from Vanheim. So I don't think this is connected to anything. And so, like, I don't love that style of raiding. But this is enough provinces that it is going to hurt Asphodel, right? It doesn't really help Vanheim, but it does hurt Asphodel. Like, so for us, like, sure, keep raiding like this. But I think, for yourself, if you can pull it off, which can be pretty difficult, right, depending on what you're up against. Like, sometimes you just can't do connected raiding. And I do think this might be one of those times, right, because there's this massive army and, like, this weird, this is part of, like, Vanheim's shape was already really weird, and it just makes life difficult when you're just really long and stringy. But that war is still ongoing. Yeah, it's still a bit of a mystery, like, what man is up to. They haven't really gotten back to me about anything. I didn't reach out, like, specifically for a nap, I don't think. It's been a little while. It's been so long now, I don't even remember what the specific offer was, or if there even was an offer. But, like, yeah, I think, they want to keep their options open, it seems like. So, like, I'm not really going to bother them. We will move this army off. We may even gateway this army over to the Phlegron area. And then, of course, our other army is moving to invade the Hall of the Mountain King. And once they've defeated all those trolls and stolen their stuff, they'll probably just go back to Bandar and hang out. Because I don't really want to kick anything off, like, with Yis or Asphodel until we finish, this whole situation up here and hopefully stabilize with Ulm. We'll see. It's possible that, Ulm and I racing for territory in Phlegra will turn into a war in and of itself. But yeah, hopefully we can close this out. And, like, if we have to give this throne up to Ulm, that's probably worth it, because I do think it's time, to start thinking about Asphodel. The other option is to go for Shinyama, who are probably currently our weakest neighbor, other than, like, people that were already, like, fighting or going to be fighting. So that is a thought. We have a decent border with them, but it would leave us, in order to pick up all the territory, it would leave us in a bit of an awkward spot. So, and I am pretty concerned, about the fact that Asphodel, I don't think, has really been significantly challenged, so they've probably had a chance to build up whatever it is they're planning on doing, and that won't be good for us. I haven't really sat down and analyzed the throne situation yet, because usually it's not too much of a concern for me because I'm not doing this well. But it's also pretty hard to, get all the thrones that you need until you're pretty large and pretty deep into the game. But we're probably getting to the point where it's like we need to start thinking about not just, like, who would be a good target in terms of relative size and also matchup, but also in terms of, like, well, what kind of throne access is it going to give us? You know what I mean? And start looking for, like, okay, how do we actually close out this game? How do we actually win? So haven't done that analysis yet. Maybe in the next couple turns, we'll definitely have a chat about, where I see us going to actually win the game. Happily, we did end up with Eternal Pyre. I guess that's definitely worth mentioning. So yeah, Agartha and I cast it on the exact same turn, which we got a laugh out of. That's, kind of unfortunate. Like we're not allies with Agartha or anything, but, anybody who's slowing Airyu down is more or less a friend to us at this point, or really, I think just a friend to this whole game. But, we definitely prefer our cast to have been the one to go through. So we're just going to sit on that income for a while, as much as we can. I think we did hand out a few gems for fire elementals or something somewhere. But yeah, we definitely want to build up a solid bank so that we don't have to wait so long the next time that it goes down, because it probably will go down again. I think, it's a decent chance it'll come from Falegra, and then of course, it could have been it could have been anyone really. I've been blaming Asphodel simply because I know the player is quite good, but also, right, because Purgatory is a big problem for an undead nation, so kind of makes sense that they'd be most interested in knocking it down. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, knocking down someone's global is always useful. I guess I didn't talk about these raiders. So they're sieging our fort. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long time before they break it down, so we're not too worried about that. We're going to raid into here, and then, we're bringing out various forces. If they go to the north, if they go here, they will escape all of our efforts, so we'll see. But eventually we will get a hold of them and get rid of them. And then otherwise, like, pretty similar recruitment, more or less full mage recruitment. I don't know, there might be some fort here that we didn't manage to recruit a mage out of, but I believe full mage recruitment, and we are trying to recruit a bit more in Bandar. The scales still, like, aren't yet great, and we haven't upgraded it to a citadel, so that's, on the short list. But yeah, we definitely want to, start building up some more knights here, because this is probably the area where things are gonna get hot next. And then a variety of forging, of course, but most importantly, we are forging our wolf cannon, or werewolf cannon. I guess it's a little bit of both. And as you can see, that's costing us the majority of our nature gems. The few other gems went elsewhere, right? Like our bug blanket, and probably making some shoes. Yeah, in fact, I think, yep, making some shoes, of course. Like, you gotta have the shoes. I really need like a shoe return service, because like some of these guys, I mean, this guy is headed home for more gems, but like some of these guys, like, yeah, these two guys, they probably don't need their shoes anymore. But I don't have somebody to, right? This guy's already carrying some shoes back home. And at the end of the day, like, I don't hate them having the shoes. It does provide them with, extra reinvigoration, which is always nice for spellcasters. But would prefer to get the mobility use out of them. I think that's more important. But yeah, anyway, we have shoes out and about, so we're making more shoes because we have a bunch of old men that move really slow. And yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 59.